Hello, fellow humans. Chris here. So, on this day before Thanksgiving, I just wanted to briefly talk about my grandparents. My grandmother, one of my grandmothers, is my only remaining grandparent that's still alive. She lives on the East Coast. I grew up not seeing my East Coast grandparents very often, but Thanksgiving was typically a time that I did see them. Thanksgiving was the time that I saw pretty much all my family. My extended family is not particularly large, but that was the time that I saw all my grandparents. So I have a lot of memories with them on Thanksgiving. And in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I just wanted to talk about all of them briefly. So first off, my grandmother, the one that's still alive, she's always been special to me because she's the of all my grandparents, she's the one that I think most kind of understood me, who I was, and my aspirations when it came to like when I used to be in theater and even my aspirations for getting on the radio. So I always appreciated her for that, and she always humored me with my antics growing up, my theatrics and all that. My grandfather, who was her husband, also a person that I really associate with Thanksgiving, being from the East Coast and everything. We usually would visit them on Thanksgiving, or they would visit us over here on the West Coast. He was a service member as well, and actually, one of my fondest memories of him is a memory that I don't have with him personally, but it's a story, and basically he tried to come down to where I was training for boot camp when I first enlisted, and tried to basically get access to the facility so he could come watch me train. And the front gate guard very politely said that wasn't allowed and that would disrupt the training. But I always kind of got a kick out of that because it was a good, I think like a 3 hour trip for him to come down to the base. So I always remember him for that. I also remember him for helping to encourage me to pig out one particular Thanksgiving when we had quite a lot of pies and ice cream and other delicious desserts, and he kind of encouraged me to continue eating, to kind of prove my toughness or my manliness, I guess. And I kind of accepted the challenge, and I very greatly paid for it later that night. So those are a couple things with those grandparents. And then my West Coast grandparents, both of them are gone. My grandmother just passed actually 2 years ago this month. Still miss her terribly. She was one of a kind. She really filled the stereotype of the kind of spoiling grandparent. Now having kids myself, I can appreciate the frustrations that can cause as a parent when you've got kids, grandparents who like to kind of circumvent the normal rules and routines and kind of spoil your kids. But she was definitely that kind of grandmother. We did all kinds of crazy stuff. She actually, when I was younger, we did an experiment where we both went to. She took me to McDonald's and Burger King so we could compare the burgers, and we the consensus there was that we couldn't tell the difference, but it was a good excuse for me to get some meals that I like. And then my grandfather, who he died 16 years ago. Just another, one of a kind guy, a brilliant man. He was a physicist and a professor of physics and chemistry. And he died 2004, brain tumor, actually glioblastoma, the same brain tumor that John McCain died from. At the time that he died, I actually was worried that my grandmother was going to die shortly after because she really shut down. And, you hear stories sometimes about people who, one spouse passes at old age and then the other one follows shortly after. But fortunately, she was able to kind of come back from that and lived 14 more years. But my grandfather, he was a very dry sense of humor, brilliant man, as I said, but not particularly energetic or he didn't make a lot of outgoing gestures or exasperated yelling or anything like that. He's kind of a quiet, subdued man who would carry really good conversation. Um, my story with him is actually, again, not a story that I experienced personally, but I was told that when he was a kid, he was famous for showing up at Thanksgiving dinner, observing the feast in front of him, kind of eyeing everything and deciding that he didn't really see anything he liked, and instead opting to go to the kitchen and pour himself a bowl of cornflakes, which as a kid, but that definitely fit the mold of who I knew of him as a grandfather, because he still loved those cornflakes, and he was always kind of a simple meat and potatoes kind of eater. Although he did get a little bit more kind of eclectic in his food tastes as he got a little bit older. And also, he had the phenomenon that Bernie Sanders has, which is he looked exactly the same at 40 as he did at 75. It's this sort of reverse aging thing where when you're like 30, 35, people think you look really old, but then when you're like 75, it balances out and you look pretty good for your age. So he had that. He actually, I always thought that he had a resemblance to Bernie Sanders, which maybe, and his my grandmother's name is also Jane, which is Bernie Sanders' wife's name. So I guess the point that I'm coming around to here is I still miss all of them a lot, even though they died at relatively old age and lived a good long life. I learned this story after my grandfather died in 2004, that he had had some kind of episode in early, like mid 80s, when I was very young, maybe a few years old. And I guess at the time he thought he was going to die. It turned out that I think it was just something related to stress, something like that, fainting spell or something. I don't really know too much of the details, but I know that he thought he was going to die, and he had said, "Damn, I wanted to see Christopher grow up." And then he ended up being okay, and he did get to see me grow up. And then after he died, I remember thinking, damn, I wish he had lived long enough to see me get through college, or damn, I wish he had lived long enough to see me join the military. The point I think there, when I really think about it, is that there's always something more that you wish you could do, with the people you love, no matter how old they are. And I think about my grandmother who died 2 years ago, and like I said, I still miss her a lot. Sometimes it surprised me at times how much it's hurt having lost her. She was almost 90 years old. I mean, so she wasn't young, but it doesn't matter when the people have an impact on your life and you love them. It doesn't matter. You always wish for a little bit more, and as much as I wish that I could have another Thanksgiving with them tomorrow, I think that if they were here, even knowing that they were so old anyway, I still would want to opt for their health and safety. And even if it made only a 6-month difference in their life or a year difference in their life, I would still want to look out for their safety. And also understanding that it goes beyond even your grandparents. It goes to everybody that you may potentially come in contact with, that you're basically upping your chances of becoming a spreader, and you might not even know it if you don't have symptoms. So what I'm saying is keep that in mind, and it's not just your older grandparents, it's anybody. I know people who are younger, who are my age, who are more susceptible. Just keep that in mind, and remember that the people we love them forever, and we always wish for that one more experience that we could have. It's going to end sometime with everybody, but I think it's good to hold on to however many good years you still have with everybody you love. So just something to think about. I hope you have a blessed Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to y'all again really soon. Thanks for staying with me all this time again. Might have been rambling a little, but I appreciate it. I will talk to y'all again really soon. Have a great rest of your day. Happy Thanksgiving, and don't be afraid to question the consensus.